Not yet. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking your time today and join to this session. Firstly, I hope all of you are safe and sound during this COVID-19 situation. But before we start the session, I would like to let you know that we are going to share with you that this session, we are talking about the 5-stage you need to know before you kickstart your migration process. And this session is going to be very informative. So it is very good if you stay focused all to the end of this session. I'm going to remind you some key reminders. So all of you will be on mute, but if accidentally turn your mic on, please put it on silent or mute again. We suggest you put yourself on a speaker view, which is on the top at the right side of your display. Just press it because you will see the slides bigger and it's more clear for you. You are more than welcome to ask for any question. You can write it in the chat box. So this chat box is actually at the bottom of your display. Just scroll the mouse on it, click on it and write your question. We will catch up end of the session as much as time allows us. And for those who attend to this seminar, they have advantage of having 15-minute free consultation with our advisor. So if you want to have that, please write 15 minutes. Our team will come back to you after the session to arrange the time and everything for you. So I would like also to introduce you our speaker. Today we do have Miss Audrey Authony. She is Associate Director of Global Migration Solution with more than 10 years experience in skilled and family migration. She is experienced in handling cases and also she is professional, detailed, and passionate. Without further ado, I would like to pass to Audrey to start the webinar with you. See you all at the end.
Thank you, Hassam. Hi, a very good morning to everyone. Thank you. It's good to do this webinar again. We usually do our webinars on a monthly basis. And today I would like to focus a little bit more on the five main critical steps in making sure your migration is actually successful. So that I'll be sharing you later into the process. Before we start off with that, I would just like to introduce you to the company. So Global Migration Solutions is now 15 years old. We carry ourselves as a premier migration advisory firm. And we are proud to say that we have helped more than 12,000 families migrate to Australia. All right. And we have a 99.9% success rate in this past 15 years. Unfortunately, there was an unsuccessful rate due to medical failure and fraudulent document. So we have a very thorough review process that we are very, very particular about before we even take in a case and also before we put in every bit of the submission. And because of this, we are confident to offer a 100% refund policy on our agency fees should your application not go through. I'm also proud to share with you that we have been awarded as the Top 50 Global Migration Agency CEO Award. And this is actually a global recognition award for migration companies globally. And we actually got this award in Los Angeles in 2019. We have now grown to 4 offices. We have one in Singapore, Vietnam, and we have a service office in Australia, and our main office is here in KL. So for the longest time, since we actually started in 2004, we were the premier, we were the specialist in Australia migration and New Zealand. Over the years, we have also started to diversify into other countries. depending on customers' requirements as well, which is usually the investment program by investment program. Okay, so we have Portugal, US, and also Malaysia. So for those who are interested to migrate to Malaysia, we also support them. For Portugal, it's by investment, starting from 280,000 euro, and for US, it is 900,000 USD. So this is the main people behind the company. Desmond Ang is the managing director of Global Migration Solution. All right. He is the registered license agent for Australia and New Zealand, and he is based in Kuala Lumpur. He's based in our office. Okay. So he basically sits right next to my office, and Desmond needs to go through every application that comes into the office. He must go through a review before we make a submission. So you can be rest assured that we are just not handling the application without a migration agent's review. Okay. We also work very closely with our senior agent, James Allen Hall. So James Allen Hall is actually based in the Singapore office. James is so experienced right now. He's so experienced that he is now at a certified trainer level, whereby he is able to give training and courses for migration agents already. Okay, so James is very, very knowledgeable, and all of us work closely together to make sure all the legislative requirements, the latest policies, all are met for your application. This is the team, all right? So that does the entire processing support as well. And another thing to remember is when you are dealing with a registered migration agent office, please make sure that the license is current. So this is Desmond's license. Okay, you can actually verify this through the MARA web, okay, through the Australian government website under the MARA. Okay, MARA is the Migration Agents Registration Authority, and it must be current. It is very important for the license to be current because every year they need to be up to date with the latest policy. If you're not up to date with the latest policy, then the fact that the rules change so fast, then it's very important to stay updated. Okay, now, so the reason you're here today is because Australia is in some way appealing to you, and you're thinking of migrating to Australia because of this. So why is Australia so popular for migration? If you look at Malaysians alone, right, there was an article in Star that previously said 10,000 Malaysians migrate to Australia annually. Okay, and where are most Malaysians based? Most Malaysian migrants are all based in Australia. Okay, Australia is the top destination for Malaysia. I'm sure it's also because it's closer to home. But let's also look into the other factors that makes Australia so attractive. So one of the all-time winning factor is because of their education system. The Australian education is always known to be world-class. 80% of the clients or even more that comes to see me, it's because they say they want their children to have a different education environment, okay? Even the ones who have a one-year-old child, they come to us because they say they want to plan for their children's education in Australia. So that's how well-known Australian education system is. They always want, clients always want to move the children over to an Australian education system. It's also because it's a very all-rounded system. It's just not purely academic. It also makes you very much street smart. And Australian universities, okay, Australian universities are also, there are many top 10 in the world, Australian universities, and being an Australian PR, you would be only paying 30% of the fee. So this is another reason that makes Australia so attractive. Next is the environment in Australia. It's known to be safe, family friendly, right? It's a very nice, safe environment. Politically, they're also very stable. And that is why Australia has always been awarded world's most livable city year after year, all right? In the top 10 cities, you would at least see 2 cities every year becoming in the world's most livable cities. And usually it's Melbourne and sometimes it's Perth, right? Melbourne is always there without fail. But there was even a year where 4 cities were all won by Australia, which is Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide. Okay. And this healthcare system in Australia is also really advanced. They have a very good healthcare system. You can also see in the way they've actually battled COVID-19, right? They've managed to flatten the curve really, really fast. And this is because they do things, they have the right expertise to do this well. Housing is also affordable, okay? If you're comparing with countries like, let's not even talk about Hong Kong, where the housing prices are so crazy high. Let's talk about getting a nice home in a central location. You're talking about being in, let's say, in London or something like that, right? Here, a median house price is about 500,000 only for a 2-bedroom landed property. You can actually get it for about 500,000, okay? And what else makes Australia so appealing is because it's multicultural, right? To those who've been to Australia, I'm sure you would not deny that you do not feel alienated when you're actually in Australia, right? Somehow you feel like you can adjust. You can adjust to the environment, you can adjust to the people around you. And why is that? Because their culture is not too different from how we are, and the culture is actually formed by 70% of migrants who are actually living there. So you will not feel left out thinking that you're really in a different planet. And the reason why you can adapt so well is because there are already so many migrants living there, and you feel it's very easy to just ease into the situation as well. Okay. Another thing, work-life balance, right? Everybody likes to say work-life balance. Is work-life balance that bad here in Asia? Maybe, right? So in Australia, there's a lot of importance being given to you, your own time, right? It's usually a 9 to 5 working culture. Overtime is not encouraged in Australia, right? Employers usually, my clients share with me that when they are in Australia and it's already 5 p.m. and they are staying up to 5:30, the boss actually asks them, what are you doing there? Why aren't you going back? You should be heading home. Because in Australia, if you actually work above your working hours, you are taken to be unproductive and not being able to manage your time properly. So that is one of the reasons, especially singles. When I have all the single clients coming to us, I always like to ask them, what is your main objective in migrating? And they always say, I prefer a work-life balance, more time for yourself. Okay, so these are the all the little factors that come together and make Australia a popular migration destination. So what are the other Australian benefits? So once you're an Australian PR, you'll be getting free medical benefits, okay? So this is basically in public hospitals, of course, okay? You can live and work anywhere in Australia, in any states in Australia once you're a PR. You also have family tax relief benefits for school-going children, for example, for income earners below 100,000 per annum. The government actually gives tax relief benefits to parents, okay? Under tax relief benefit A, there's tax relief benefit B, where you can actually get almost 100 per fortnight for each child under one category, okay? So this really helps with your own, with your own expenses. And education, primary and secondary school is free, okay? So in Australia, most of my clients who actually go to Australia, they don't even bother sending the children to a private school in Australia, which of course you need to pay for. They actually just send to a public school because the quality in the public school is already very good, okay? And for tertiary education, you would only need to pay almost 30% of what an international student would pay. You have work rights, welfare benefits, okay, for, let's say you've got unemployment that's happening even during this COVID-19 situation. You can actually see how Australia is helping out their permanent residents, right? There's a lot of allowance being given to them. And most importantly, Australia PR gets you Australian citizenship. This is very important for many clients, especially I have many expat clients from Iran or India who come and see me, and they always share with me that they like Malaysia very much. Like Malaysia is a nice place, they can adapt well to Malaysia, but the reason also why they have to move to Australia is because Australia offers a citizenship, and that's something that they really, really want to get as well. So that's very attractive. First home buyer grant, the government helps you with a little bit of allowance of like 8,000 to 10,000 Aussie for your first home. You can sponsor a family member, and most importantly, having an Australian PR is almost as good as a citizen. As you know, Malaysia does not allow dual citizenship. So to those who still wish to hold Malaysia citizenship and yet get to enjoy the benefit what Australia can offer to you, you can always still be a PR and get access to almost everything. The only two things that it's going to be different as a PR and a citizen. Number one, you can't work in the government. Number two, you can't vote. These are the only things that you will not be able to do. Other than that, in terms of benefit, it's totally the same. Okay? All right, now let's get into the visas available for skill migration. So there are basically 3 visas available for skill migration. The first one is called Skill Independent 189. Independent would mean you do not need to have a state nomination or a relative sponsorship. Okay, this visa gets you a direct permanent residence, and this is a 5-year visa. The next one is Skill Nominated 190, which is also a direct permanent resident visa. Through this visa, you must have a state to nominate you. Okay, so these 2 visas that currently gives you a direct PR is not that easy to achieve these days. Okay, I'm very, very selective of putting someone under this visa because the points required for this visa is just getting higher by the year. Okay, it's just getting higher by the year. So for example, for 189, to be really, really safe, you need to be at least minimum 90 points. Okay, otherwise we don't foresee a chance on this. So what is the visa that we should be ideally focusing on is actually the new one that has come up, which is the subclass 491, which replaced the previous subclass 489. This visa, you can do it either through a state nomination or a relative sponsorship, and you get a temporary residence first. Okay, so this temporary residence is unlike any other temporary residence that you might have heard of, like work visas or a temporary graduate visa. Okay, because a work visa or a temporary graduate visa does not give you an automatic route to a PR. You still need to apply brand new again. But this has a direct conversion to a PR, provided you fulfill 2 conditions. Okay, so in a 5 years, it's a 5 years visa. In the 5 years, you will need to make sure that you live for 3 years and work for 3 years in a regional area in Australia. So what are the regional areas in Australia? It's anywhere except Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne. Okay, as long as you work for a minimum taxable income of 53,900 per annum for 3 years, live for 3 years, you can then convert this into a full PR, which is honestly not difficult to do. When you actually come for a consultation, I will share more about this. Okay, so just for you to know a little bit more about this visa, what are the benefits of subclass 491 and why you should apply for it also, because you can qualify with 50 points because the nomination from this visa gives you 15 points, making it 65. Okay, there are more options of regional areas. See what happened previously, the temporary resident visa, you cannot stay in Gold Coast, you can't stay in Canberra, you can't stay in Perth. But when 491 was introduced, the government has actually opened up all this area. So it's very clear, if you get this visa, you just cannot live and work in Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne only. Okay. Another wonderful entitlement under this visa is the free medical benefit that's being given to you as well, which no other temporary resident visa has. And you're also granted priority processing, meaning your visa can usually be granted within 3 months after submission. Your children can still enjoy free primary and secondary school education. And most importantly, full-time work rights. And you can also run your own business through this visa. Okay, so it's very important to have work rights because many clients actually ask me, can I apply for a job first before going to Australia? I actually welcome you to try this on your own. If you actually start to apply for a job now, in return, you will see that practically every company or recruiter comes back to you to ask, do you have work rights? Okay, so when you don't have work rights, they usually cannot proceed further with your application. So it's always important for you to obtain a visa first and then apply for the apply for a job, and then they would look at your application more seriously. Okay. So what are the basic requirements for a skill migration to Australia? First, you need to have the occupation that is in demand. Okay. Then you need to have an English test. All right. So generally high level of English. If you look at the immigration website, they speak about having a competent English, which is band 6 or PTE 50. Right. But I don't go by 6. I always feel that that's just not going to work. So I usually will get my clients to be at least at a proficient level of band 7 or PTE 65. Okay. You need to be under the age of 45. So those of you who are almost hitting this, please do not delay. And it's a point-based system of minimum points being 65. Okay. So minimum points is 65, but whether it works for you, we will tell you. Okay. Now, this is to show you the skill migration process. It's actually in main 4 stages. So the first stage is actually to have your skills assessment done, which means you need to have an occupation. Then you do your English test. After you have these 2 things, you express your interest to make an application, and you need to get an invitation, either through a relative sponsorship or a state nomination or independently. And only when you get an invitation, you can submit a visa, you do your medicals and your police check, and then you get your visa approved. Okay, so it's just 4 stages. So today's focus, as I was telling you, is in these 4 stages, it is important for you to know what are the steps that are actually critical and crucial to do in order for you to have an end-to-end success. Meaning you get the visa and you also settle well in Australia. Okay, so we'll be looking into that shortly. So what are the critical steps? First, picking the right nominated occupation, meeting the mandatory documents and prerequisites, accuracy, maximizing your chance to get an invitation, and to make sure you're job ready and you're settled right. Okay, so let's look at this. Number 1, picking the right nominated occupation. I know for some it's very direct to pick the occupation, no brainer. Okay, but sometimes there are 500 almost 500 occupations available for migration. So how do you know which is the best for you, which is the most suitable one for you, right? It's important to pick the right one that can also give you the fair chance of success. All right, so what we do, the first step is always get in touch with us and we will do a free assessment on your eligibility. Okay, no strings attached. Send your information to us and we'll just see if this is suitable or not. What is the occupation that we'll be nominating you under? Since I've been in the industry for 10 years, I've also seen many clients being very confused because they tend to have a combination of work experience. But as you know, when you apply for migration, you can only pick one nominated occupation. So if you have a combination of skill, how do you pick it? Which is a better one to pick? That is also something that we need to determine based on not only the authorities' requirement, but also what has a better success, right? So that is something that we will walk you through. Next, as you know, there are 3 categories of occupation list. MLTSSL, which is the long-term list, SCSOL, which is the short-term list, and the regional occupation list. 3 occupation lists. Does it really matter on which occupation that you need to pick your nominated occupation? Does it really matter? We will decide for you, because many people, everyone is very in favor to choose something on MLTSSL. They come to me and be like, oh, can I try to see what is on the long-term list? So you need to be very practical about why you actually want to be on the long-term list. Does it really help you, or does it actually backfire, right? So we need to look at it more holistically, and we'll also help you do that. And meeting Australian qualification standards as well. For example, Australia has got their own way of assessing. A simple example I can share with you is if you're an engineer, right? If you're an engineer from UK, you know that the UK engineering degrees are usually 3 years. It's not 4 years. So when it's a UK engineering degree for 3 years, usually you will not get a professional engineer outcome, but you'll get another outcome called engineering technologies. So there are a lot of things that we need to look at. So you might be an electrical engineer, but if you do not have the 4 years degree, you can't apply under that. Okay, So that is the most important thing, to pick the right occupation. Number 2, the biggest headache usually, mandatory documents. Okay, the documents and the prerequisites. Usually clients go scrambling for after a consultation or something, because they notice that the documents they need to come up with, because applications have become more tedious. If you have actually applied for migration like 10 years ago, it used to be so simple that you just need to have a degree. Okay, with your degree, you just put it in 3 weeks, you get your outcome of a skill of your occupation. It used to be so simple, but now applications are becoming more tedious. There are more supporting documents needed. There's more evidence needed. So it's important to make sure you get your documents right and acceptable according to the different authority. What works for authority A will not work for authority B, right? So you really need to know how each authority operates, okay? Some want it color scan, some want it to be certified and not color scan. So you really need to do that properly. And another thing that I always like to, I think, to share with you all as well is the most biggest headache that clients face is when it comes to past employment evidences. See, you can claim points up to the last 10 years, but what happens if you do not have documents for the last 10 years? Do you still have your payslip for the last 10 years? Do you happen to have any sample? Do you have some form of employment evidence for the past 10 years? Being human, it's very normal, right? If you ask me, that there are also some records that I don't have, right? Because you tend to move home, you tend to discard, you do some housekeeping, it's natural. But when it comes to migration, these documents become important. So how do we do that? So what we always do is we always try to work with the client to come up with a solution that it's okay. If you do not have this and this, if you don't have your payslip, what else can we do? So we draw out options for you to let you know what are the how can we have the other alternative documents as well. All right. So it's very important to get this right. And what happens if your qualification is not in field and not accredited? All this is a prerequisite. If your degree is not an IT degree, for example, you need to write a RPL, a recognition of prior learning. If your engineering qualification is not recognized, you need to write a competency demonstration report, which is a 3 engineering project report. So these are all the things that we will advise you of what is exactly needed in order to have a successful skills assessment process. Okay. Now, this is really important, right? Accuracy. In migration, it's so important to get your information across right the first time, okay? Why? Because time matters. So unfortunately, we do not have time for trial and error as far as possible, and we need to really strive to get it right the first time, despite the different requirements and conditions. Because every skill assessment requirements varies, okay? And state requirements varies. When you see there's many stages of submissions, right? You first will be putting in a submission to get your occupation done. After you do that, you will also need to seek an invitation, right? And how do you seek an invitation? You need to put a state nomination application. To which state? There are 6 states and 2 territories. Each state and 2 territories, all the states and 2 territories, they have their own requirements, and it varies. One accepts it this way, the other one will not accept it that way. Okay, so we really need to know that when we are putting in a documentation for this particular state, they're not going to come back and say like, okay, this is not meeting. All right, so accuracy is so important. Another thing is ANZ ESCO policy versus skill assessment policy. The immigration usually follows the ANZ ESCO policy, but the skills assessment body tends to have their own policy in coming up with your result. So which one do we follow? It's very, very important, because if you follow it incorrectly, you will end up claiming your work experience points also incorrectly. Okay, so we need to see for your occupation which is the policy we should apply in determining your points. Okay, so coming to points, we're talking about EOI. So when you do your EOI, your expression of interest, when you claim your points, it automatically picks up the total. If you have accidentally claimed your points incorrectly, that would mean you're being invited at a wrong point, which is not valid, and you submit a visa. When you do that, your visa application actually fails. Okay, so it's there's no room for error in doing an EOI. EOI must be accurate. Okay, because only when your EOI is accurate, following that, your visa submission that you do to immigration will also be correct. Maximizing chances. Okay, so the thing is, how is, everyone talks about immigration being very competitive, chances are not, some even say, oh, you can't migrate now. That's really not correct, okay? So I know many, with internet now, with forums, many people are doing their own reading, and you please don't draw the conclusion that you are not eligible. Don't ever do that, because your scenario might be different to another person, okay? So allow us to just do a free assessment for you and tell you, okay, yes, you're not eligible, or yes, you are eligible, okay? So generally, it is always useful to have high points, generally. But at the same time, let me tell you, it's not always about having high points, okay? Because for some occupations, I'm telling you, meeting the bare minimum of 65 will work. So you could be someone at 65 thinking that, hey, I don't have a chance, but this might be working for you, okay? So, but to those who really need high points, what can we do? What are the variable points that we can try to work on to boost your point further? Of course, English is the first one, right? So for the English points, of course, if you push your points to the highest score, you get more points. What else? We can do the NATI, which is the interpreter and translator test, which is, you can, apparently now this test that only used to be something that you can take in Australia, you can now do this online. It's a new development that I just got to know about last month or so. That gives you additional 5 points. If you have a partner who also has a skill, then we can also assess your partner. Sometimes the clients do not send the CV of the partner to say, oh, she's a housewife now, so she doesn't have a skill. But still, let us do the assessment, because sometimes we can still get the skill from the partner just by the qualification. Okay, so this is how we push up the points. Another way, special pathway through various state policies. Like I told you, the 6 states and the 2 territories in Australia, they have their own guideline, they have their own requirement and policies, right? So you need to know all these different policies to see which one you can leverage on, okay? One of the policies that I always like to leverage on is South Australia under the 95 points high category, okay? So whenever I see my client coming with a very competitive occupation, and I see there's so much of competition, I try my best to see how I can push them to become 95. That's one way. That's just one way. There are many other ways as well. Next, be practical about your visa choice and your preferred state, okay? I think this is very important, because I know that many of you come to us after being referred by a friend, and your friend might have been somebody who is a PR holder 5 years ago in Australia, or they got their visa 5 years ago, and they say, hey, go and see Global Migration, I got my PR through them. And it's very normal to try and expect that you would also get the same visa as them, but like, times have changed, right? Getting a PR is slightly tougher now. So most likely you might not be getting the same visa as your friend, like a 189 or a 190, which is a direct PR, but that's okay. We need to do something that Australia is still accepting, okay? But if you're very certain that you do not wish to start the process, because I have a client, for example, she told me she only wants a 189, but she's at 85 points. And I know for certain 85 points is not going to work for her occupation, for certain, okay? So we need to be honest to you about that. So it's either she accepts the probability that, okay, fine, I'm going to look at the 491 or a 190, or stay by the 189, okay? So start it if it's really suitable for you, of course, but be practical about which visa will get you a visa eventually, right? And a preferred state. When you do a state nomination, many will say, I want to go to Melbourne, okay? But let's say, for example, you are a public relations officer, okay? Public relations professional. and you come to see me and say you want to go to Melbourne, but Melbourne does not have public relations officer on their list. So how do you get yourself to Melbourne, right? So it's always important to think that you always need to first think of a way to get into Australia first, and then go to your dream city, right? So it's very important to plan it that way. Next, we need to continuously monitor the immigration state and the state trend, okay? For example, the selections for family sponsorship were not being given for high demand occupations like engineers and certain IT occupations. But now suddenly immigration is giving, there's no announcement. They don't announce like, hey, we're going to start giving out invitations for relative sponsorship for pro rata occupations. But this is something we need to monitor, okay? And all this is to try and maximize your chances to receive an invitation, because invitation is the most important bit of the application. No invitation, you can't proceed to a visa submission, okay? Finally, once you get your visa approved, what's next, right? You've done the big job of getting the visa. Next is the big move, all right? To uproot from your current country and move to Australia. So especially for those on the 491 visa, where you have to fulfill the conditions of the 3 years, right? In the 5-year period. I always advise my clients, it's actually very, very important for you to allow sufficient buffer time before you actually move to Australia. It's very important to move not too late. Next is to, most important, to apply for a job, right? So how do you apply for the job? You got to apply for the job the right way, the Aussie way, okay? So who's going to teach you this? So here at Global Migration Solutions, we actually work with our business partners who are job experts, who help you to write the CV the right way, the cover letter the right way. And LinkedIn is really big in Australia, okay? LinkedIn is almost like a must-have for a job search in Australia. They also teach you how to do the LinkedIn the right way, okay? So it's very important for you to get help from an expert who will coach you to apply for jobs the right way in Australia. And do not rush into buying a property in Australia immediately if you're not even familiar with the area. It's always wise to lease first, right? Rent first. Familiarize with your new state, right? See what are the areas you like. Then you buy a property. And what about the main settlement? Clients with families, with children. Do you know what are the schools you need to, what are the good schools to bring your children into? How to get your first lease? So even for this, we work with a settlement expert. We have a settlement expert, for example, who's done for one of our clients. What she did is she's pretty much listed out about 5 homes to site, okay? 5 rental homes to site, okay? And depending on your child's interest, they can also do a study to see your child's interest is towards what category and what school they should go for, okay? Do the school listing for you, tell you what are the sets of accounts you should be opening, like files with Centrelink, your Medicare, basically a full range of service. So of course, this is something you can do on your own if you're really confident, okay? You can do that. But if let's say you need assistance, we can connect you to the right person for this, okay? So that's the main 5 steps to actually go through in the skill migration process. It may seem a lot, okay? But that is why we are here for you. So our job is to basically help you to go through all these 5 critical steps to the best possible way, all right? So as much as I've been telling you that Australia migration is getting tougher, a route to a PR may be tougher, right? But the reality is migration still welcomed in Australia? It is, okay? Migration is very, very important for Australia. It's still never too late to fight for places like Melbourne or Sydney, okay, where it's a not regional area. But to do that, of course, you need to really, really have very high points or a different category of occupation. There are still ways around it. We have to study that for you to see if that is suitable or not. But if it's not an option for you, don't shy away from migration, right? Like I said, it's important to get into Australia first. Get your foot in first, right? Through other places like Perth, Gold Coast, Adelaide, Tasmania, Canberra are all welcoming regions, right? We've been getting a 491 invitation for our client from Queensland, Canberra, okay? We've been getting that. So don't shy away. And why migration wouldn't stop is because migration is a great source of income to Australia's economy, where it actually adds 1% to the annual average GDP growth, which is projected from 2020 to 2050. So will they stop migration? No. Okay. So of course, with this current pandemic, many would think like, is the migration still happening? It is still happening, but we are still waiting to see what are the quotas going to be for the following year. Okay. And a skilled migrant is important because a skilled migrant of a working age is likely to add more to tax revenue versus government support. Before the Australian election, there were many talks being said that migrants are coming to reap the benefits, okay? But this is really, really not true, because a migrant, just ask yourself, when you're actually migrating to Australia, are you going there to get the welfare support, or are you going there to actually start a living and start a job, right? So that is why a skilled migrant, we don't have the mentality to just get the welfare benefits, but we want to work and we end up paying tax. And through subclass 491, the visa that we're talking to you about, you will be paying tax, right? Because you need to have a taxable income of 53,900 band. And Australia has an aging population. Everyone knows about that. And because it's always been regarded that Australia has an aging population. So hence migration needs to come in from different ways. It's either through family migration, skilled migration, employment, through employment visa, business or investment migration. Some form of migration still needs to come in, okay? So how do we manage clients at GMS? So as you know, we spoke about the 4 stages. We spoke about the 5 critical steps involved. There is a lot of things to do. There's a lot of things to follow up with. So how do we do it? Is we have a process, and we have a customized CRM for each stage of the process. And we also take reviews very, very seriously. And what we do is the first review is always given to the client. The client will need to validate the information and documents we've given. Then the next review is by me. I will always need to go through your documents. And then the final review will be done by the licensed migration advisor himself, which is Desmond Ang. Okay, so we assure you that this is the steps that we work. This is a strict SOP that we follow to make sure that nothing is missed out. All right. So this is our photographs of our approved client. So during the days of when there was no social distancing, this is what we used to do, where all the clients who got their visa approved, we used to do initial settlement seminar for the clients who got their visa. So all the clients you see here are the ones who obtained the visa, and that's Desmond there. We actually do a briefing on what you need to do next, okay? Such as opening your bank account, just like a briefing. It's a very, very fun session, and we really hope to go back to things like this as soon as we can. Okay, so I'm pretty much done, and now I'm just going to let you share with you some testimonials from our happy clients who've migrated down under.
Hi Audrey, hi Desmond. This is Alvin, greetings from Melbourne. Thank you very much for making my migration process such a smooth one. And for the rest of you, if you want to come to Australia, you can count on Global Migration Solutions. They are very professional and they can give you the best advice that they can have. Well, the life in Melbourne is great, it's terrific. And my kids, they love and enjoy schooling here. And it's very holistic. Compared to many of you, they want to have a better education, this is the place that you should come. And I have work-life balance here, and I enjoy very much spending good time with my wife, good time with my kids, and the rest of the time with my family members, my relatives, and friends over here. And good luck to the rest of you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim, and this is my husband Sajid. We engaged Global Migration in 2015 to help us with our visa application. we got our PR within 8 months from visa, from the moment we met Global to visa grant.
Yeah, so we found working with Global great. We've had a great working experience with them. They've been very professional and efficient. They've helped guide us through the entire process. They helped, identify the exact visa that would suit our requirements to get a permanent residency. And and we've moved here since 2015. We love our new home. The public transport's great. It's safe. I cycle to work. So yeah.
It's clean.
Yep.
Good infrastructure and good quality of life.
Yep. So so we'd like to say a big thank you to Global.
Yep. And Audrey for helping us with our PR.
Yep. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, good morning. This is Sahaj here.
Hi, this is Shama here.
We are here to give you a brief idea and just summarize the journey that we had. It was a very nice experience with the migration team. And choosing the migration agent was a lot of decision making, and we had a lot of choices both in Malaysia and international. But in the end, the global migration team has given us the confidence that we require to make this decision. And I'm really happy because right from the day we entered their office, it was really, we thought we made a best choice.
Selecting a migration consultant was a really daunting task for us. I didn't know where to begin, what questions to ask, but global migration solutions made a significant difference to our decision. The belief that their team can take us there was the best part. We put our complete trust on their team.
Yeah, and then I would also like to add here that we had few references and we did our research also. And finally the decision was right that we wanted to engage with global migration and follow them until the outcome.
The entire process was handled by expertise and special team. Timely updates and information on the status mattered to us the most, and we were not disappointed. We respect and highly recommend global migration solutions.
And I think I'd like to give you a big thanks to Audrey and Jean.
Desmond,
And the entire global
migration solutions for making our dream come true.
Yeah, so we are really happy with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. It's always very, very nice to share success stories of our client. So what's next? So let's say, so what's important is when you're choosing an agent, it's very, very important that you're dealing with a registered migration agent. And as I mentioned, ensure that license is still current, okay? And it's an easy accessibility to you. Many clients ask me whether that it makes a difference in actually appointing an agent based in Australia. Okay, so honestly, it doesn't, because it's purely online application in everywhere. You can be somewhere else and you can just email across everything to us. In fact, you need to have an easy accessibility to us as far as possible. Okay. Expect open and clear cost breakdown. So when you actually do a detailed consultation with us, we'll be sharing with you a detailed cost breakdown stage by stage. Okay. Ask questions and be satisfied with proper answers. As you know, migration application is not as easy as ABC. There are a lot of things that there's so much of jargons, I'm very sure. Okay, I'm sure there's a lot of jargons, technical terms that you may not know, but our job is to make you understand as far as possible before you actually get into the process itself. And do not be pressured to start the application and until you are actually ready and comfortable to know that yes, you want to make this as your plan, and then start the process. Okay, so what is next for you? There's actually a 3-step process. So the first thing is you have to consider. I believe that everyone right now today in this webinar is at stage 1. You have considered, you've got the thought of migration, and that is why you're here today to come to the webinar to listen about how this works. So next is to book a consultation with me. Okay, so what we are actually doing is we are giving a free 15 minutes consultation, as what my colleague Sam has told you earlier. You will just need to type out free consultation in the chat box. So in this consultation, usually I'll just do a quick one first to make sure that you are eligible. And once we have determined your eligibility, the detailed consultation, which is also complimentary, in that I'm actually going to walk through your points. What are the employments we need to go through? What is the strategy? What are your points? And give you a transparent assessment to tell you if this is doable or not. Okay, so you can be rest assured that after you have the consultation with me, you will have a clear idea on whether you should initiate this application or not. Okay, so we'll advise you on that. How we take in cases here is we will only take in cases that we see that there's a fair chance of success. All right, but sometimes the cases there's a lot of ambiguity on the case, but the client is very keen for us to still take it because they still want to try, then we will surely take that as well. Okay, so there's no way that we will take in a case that doesn't have fair amount of chances. All right, so once the consultation is done and you're comfortable, only after that we will get into a engagement. For now, I'm done with my session. You can contact us for consultation, and I'm open for FAQs now. Esam, maybe we can do a Q&A for a while.
Yes, sure, Audrey. So basically we receive many good questions. What I can say is one of the interesting, and I think is a more technical one, is maybe I keep it at the end. So basically one of them is how we want to connect. As you can see on your screen, you just need to WhatsApp to that number or call to that number, then we will take it from there. The other one would be if I'm single and I'm applying for 491 visa, then during this being single, then I get engaged. I mean, she's asking for if I get married, then what will happen for my visa? What is the consequences, or what would be the next? Well, I'm single, but during my visa application, I will get married. What will happen?
Okay, I think I get the question. I believe they're trying to ask if, let's say, they have been invited, and so I guess they're invited when they're invited, they're actually single. Then after invitation, when the visa is being submitted, they get married, right? Okay, so this is something that cannot happen. It should not happen. So it's very important for you to plan your application properly, because when you actually get invited when you're single, you are actually getting 10 points into your point test by default. So it's important for you to make that point valid until your visa is approved. Okay, so you can't say that, oh, I've been invited, so now I can get married. No, right till the visa application is approved, you need to remain single. Otherwise, your visa would fail.
So basically, you're advising for those who are single, remain single until they get the visa, correct?
Exactly. Or plan it ahead, where before you put in your EOI, do your registration of marriage, or see if you can put them under de facto.
Okay, so there is an option for them still, yes. But they need to be in touch and we can help them to
Yes.
plan as well.
Yes.
Awesome. So the next question, again, go back to the job. Means apparently you mentioned about the job in Australia need to look like how they are accepting it, how Australian will take the CV and everything. So they are asking, what is your post migration services and how you are helping for the job and occupation, finding like your new job and everything in Australia.
Yeah, so basically, our job is just not to deliver your visa and okay, bye. You know, we actually we are continuing day by day to try our best to improve on the post-settlement aspect as well. So like for now, we have settlement experts on this, and for job, we have job experts based in Melbourne, based in Perth, and basically what they do is they walk you through to make sure that they do the CV for you correctly, coach you how to do your cover letter. They even do preps on job interviews, how you should present yourself for a job interview, how to answer questions. So we can actually very much connect you to them to make sure that you also have a smooth settlement in Australia.
Okay, lovely. So the next thing, again, I would like to highlight here, if you have any question, concern, you can write it now here. And also you can reach to the email address or the phone number. It's easy, just type it in and just drop a text. We will come back to you on that. There is a lot more question, but I just got one. Okay. Hi, Audrey. Thank you for wonderful presentation. So compliment. You mentioned family sponsorship. What is the definition of family?
Okay, so family sponsorship as far as skilled migration is concerned is up to a first cousin. That is the maximum. So your brothers and sisters, of course, your immediate family is a sponsor, and then your uncle and aunt, and your first cousin, niece, nephew, all this can be considered as a sponsor. All right, and being a sponsor, all they need to do is not, they don't have to give you money, but they just basically have to declare that they will care for your well-being in Australia. That's it. But having said that, family sponsorship visa is not really a priority right now. So we will need to study the client's profile carefully before we suggest that for them.
So do you advise anyone to go through the family sponsorship?
Possible. I need to see the occupation.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's very, very subjective. There's a few things to look at it. Are we going through family sponsorship or are we going through a family sponsorship through a state? There are a few things to look at it. Yeah.
Okay,
So
sounds
please
great.
ask that person, I mean the client, to try and get in touch with us so I can explain a little bit more specific to their circumstance.
Correct. Perfect. Audrey, we do have a lot more, but I mean, our time is limited. So let's for those who write a question here and we have not come back to them, we will definitely after the webinar, we come back to you. We share the link, YouTube link of this webinar with you again. So we will catch up again. If anything come back to your mind, you just need to write it. Catch up with us via the phone number on your screen. And thank you so much, Audrey, for great presentation. Was so informative. I again refreshed my memory about it. Thank you so much, Audrey. Thank you everyone for attending and joining today. Have a good weekend ahead. Catch up soon. Goodbye.
Thanks everyone. Looking forward to get in touch with you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.